Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. Why does Brooke feel such desperation? These days, it seems like everyone is asking themselves this question. According to spoilers on The Bold and the Beautiful, Brooke Logan is behaving very frantically to win Ridge Forrester back. Why does Brooke feel such desperation? Fans, however, can't help but worry what this whole situation might lead to in the end. Like the waffler that he is, Ridge has been alternating between Brooke and Taylor Hayes for years. Even though Brooke has been married to 6 different men, it appears that she is now acting as though Ridge is the only man in America. Although Ridge has already made up his mind about Taylor, she is acting as though nothing will stop her from getting back together this time. The woman hasn't gotten a clue, despite your expectation that she would. We don't recall the self-assured Brooke Logan of so many years ago like this. Naturally, some readers expressed their thoughts on this plot and its apparent direction. What will happen to Brooke Logan next? They were writing a lovely mature version of Brooke a while back, and now they have her back to being so desperate and sad and lonely without that loser, some people even said in their comments. That love story isn't romantic, and I don't think any fans even want to see Brooke and Ridge together. Taylor has no moral friends or family because they won't tell her to stop going back to the idiot, another fan remarked. Brooke is also completely insane. The fact that all 4 of these individuals have switched makes it pitiful. Additionally, this comment was made, Ridge consistently switches Taylor and Brooke. Because of their prior interactions, Brooke is aware that Ridge will be leaving Taylor and knocking on her door. She is simply angry that Taylor is unaware of the task. However, lovers will just need to tune in every day to see what's going to happen next. Brooke's case is pleaded by Eric. Spoilers for Monday, April 28, 2025's episode of The Bold and the Beautiful hint that Eric will give Ridge advice he doesn't want to hear. Spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful, Ridge's duty. Ridge Forrester can't stop thinking about Brooke Logan since the Forrester fashion show was a huge success and he looked stunning in the bridal gown. After noticing this, Eric Forrester speaks with his son. He wanted Ridge to be reminded of Portofino, so he had Brooke model the dress. He wants Ridge to forget about this crap with Taylor Hayes and take Brooke back. Ridge is unwilling to listen to Eric's opinions. He informs him that he is currently dating Taylor. He promised her that he wouldn't let her down again. Ridge's heart isn't in this, so Eric implores him to change his mind. When the person he should be with is right there, he cannot stay with someone out of obligation. Will Ridge see the light, or at least the light that Eric sees? When they were on the runway together, Brooke did arouse his interest. The destiny of Brooke. Ridge is her destiny, Brooke tells Hope Logan, and they must be together. She has devoted her entire life to being with Ridge, and she is unable to stop at this point. Hope even grudgingly consents to help her mother. Although she still harbors resentment toward Ridge for the way she was handled at Forrester Creations, she is aware that the heart desires what it desires. Hope is still in Carter Walton's heart, so he visits Brooke's house and begs her to reconsider and give them another chance. Will Hope and Carter be able to move on from their history? Brooke certainly hopes so. She used to believe that Liam was Hope's fate, but now she is certain that Carter is. Will Hope concur? Daphne Rose certainly does not. Brooke Logan's team now includes Eric Forrester. According to previews for The Bold and the Beautiful, was Eric Forrester always on Brooke Logan's squad or did he just join her team at this point? That's what many fans find themselves wondering. For all the information you require, continue reading below. Spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful, Brooke Logan's team now includes Eric Forrester. Brooke continually trying to re-enter Ridge Forrester's life, despite the fact that he has made it plain that he doesn't want anything to do with her now that he is with Taylor Hayes. And by pushing her to pursue her desires, her father-in-law Eric appears to be supporting her behavior. But as Brooke is doomed to nothing but misery, this advice is also highly poisonous. Because of this, a lot of people are left wondering, why is Eric attempting to leave Brooke in this manner? As our devoted readers are aware, the issue generated a lot of discussion on social media. Eric has always been Team Brooke from day one, some commenters have even said. He would prefer to see Ridge with Brooke because he is unable to be with her, While Taylor is present, he simply puts up with her for Ridge's benefit. He has never stated that he desired Ridge and Taylor together. I certainly never heard him say it, if he did. Spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful: what will happen to Brooke Logan next? After learning that Brooke was expecting Bridget's child's husband, another fan commented, Eric was upset with her for about 10 minutes before forgiving her. There is literally nothing Brooke can do to make Eric angry if you can forgive someone so quickly for such an unforgivable sin. Spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful: Brooke Logan's team now includes Eric Forrester. The following comment was also made: Eric wants what Brooke wants for herself. Liam would wish her well and even assist make it happen if she expressed a desire to be with him. Even if he doesn't desire Brooke for himself, I believe Eric only wants Ridge with her because he wants her near him. In essence, he wants to have it both ways. After weeks of simmering tensions in Los Angeles, the environment erupted into a whirlwind of tense looks, tight smiles, and barely restrained hatred the moment Brooke Logan and Taylor Hayes stepped into the same room. Everyone around them tried valiantly to act as though this was just another day, but it was impossible to ignore their complex past, which was full of betrayals, heartbreaks, reconciliations, and breakdowns. No, it wasn't. Unspoken emotions threatened to destroy even the best-laid plans on a day like that, the kind of day soap operas are designed for. The atmosphere changed as soon as Brooke walked into Forrester Creations, exuding her trademark glitz and smoldering superiority. Phones were put down, conversations stopped in the middle of sentences, and everyone's eyes were on Brooke to watch what she would say, do, and, most importantly, how Taylor would respond. Taylor entered with her usual elegance a few seconds later, but her genuine emotions were revealed by the tightness of her grin. Although she hadn't come for a fight, it was inevitable because Brooke was in her personal space. The tension was almost palpable, slithering down the Forrester corridors like smoke. Knowing from sad experience that turmoil was always certain when Brooke and Taylor were in close quarters, Steffi and Ridge exchanged anxious looks. Despite her best efforts to appear unaffected, Hope Logan was silently begging for restraint as she shot nervous glances toward her mother. Thomas Forrester, meantime, murmured to himself about history repeating itself, a sobering caution that only added to the atmosphere of unease that pervaded the space. Carter Walton, who is typically calm, appeared tense as well, looking at the exits as if he were getting ready for an emergency escape. And the whole audience essentially held its breath when Eric Forrester proposed that the two women work together on a project for the sake of the family brand. Cooperation? Between Taylor and Brooke? It would be like asking a tornado and a volcano to cooperate on a fragile house of cards. The women, however, who were all extremely proud and committed to preserving a sense of development and maturity, agreed, at least verbally. But what came next was a master class in the art of passive-aggressive warfare. Taylor would smile tightly as Brooke offered a subtext-laden idea, then quietly undermine it with a better one. After Taylor would say something sincere about togetherness, Brooke would scathingly remind everyone, and Taylor above all, who had Ridge's heart the longest. By midday, the entire office was on edge, hoping that one or the other would storm out before the inevitable explosion. Every word, glance, and action was loaded. The tension was so intense and gradually increasing that even minor occurrences, like spilling coffee or using the wrong word, seemed like they could lead to full-scale conflict. Furthermore, the tension wasn't limited to Forrester's physical space. Deacon Sharp joked that it was only a matter of time before someone lost it, and word of the fight quickly spread to Il Giardino. When she heard the news, even Sheila Carter, who was busy planning her next move from the shadows, grinned at the ridiculousness of it all. Brooke and Taylor, the longtime enemies, now being friendly for the sake of business and family? The fantasy was bound for a catastrophic crash and burn. As Finn and Steffi argued over whether to go in and stop the catastrophe from happening organically, Steffi made the astute prediction that it's better to let them implode on their own, we'd just get caught in the blast. And they imploded. It only took one spark to light the powder keg after hours of imposed civility and growing tension. A straightforward argument about a design decision turned into a full-fledged brawl. Brooke chastised Taylor for her unending self-righteousness and martyr complex, while Taylor accused Brooke of sabotage and selfishness. With terrible rapidity, old scars were torn open, Ridge's betrayals, the arguments over their kids, and charges of cruelty and manipulation, all of it poured out like floodwaters breaking a dam. A reminder of how deeply their wounds went and how little had actually been healed beneath the flimsy facade of forced truce. It was brutal, heartbreakingly real, and visceral. Forrester Creations was rocked by the fight. Ridge, who had been attempting to negotiate from a distance, ultimately barged in and demanded silence as staff frantically tried to escape getting caught in the crossfire. His sadness was as intense as his rage. How many times would he have to see these two amazing women destroy one another and, consequently, him? Before the Brooke-Taylor battle devoured them all, how much more collateral harm could it cause? Even Ridge, who has always been caught between the two, appeared to recognize that this most recent bout of fighting could be too much to handle. With her pride damaged but her resolve unwavering, Brooke rushed off in a huff when the dust eventually settled. Taylor was left behind, clearly shocked but attempting to gather herself. She already regretted the unpleasantness but was unable to reverse it. There was a great deal of emotional damage left behind, and family members were rushing to mend both business goals and relationships. However, it was a feast for the audience, unvarnished, sloppy, tragic, and exciting. It served as a reminder of why we watch every day, to witness these fantastical characters fight, fall apart, rebuild, and fight once again, all while wearing immaculate clothes and delivering some of the greatest conversation on TV. It became evident that Brooke and Taylor's presence together had created more than simply stress, it had also resulted in an earthquake, the aftershocks of which would reverberate around Los Angeles for weeks. Alliances would change. There would be secrets revealed. Hearts would shatter once more. Viewers were left with one unquestionable realization as Ridge stood there, divided once more between the two ladies who had shaped so much of his life. Some rivalries never truly go away, and some storylines just change into the next amazing, messy, must-see chapter. If today demonstrated anything, it's that you need to pay attention when Brooke and Taylor perform together because anything may happen, and it usually does. Taylor's trust is betrayed by Eric's covert plan to get Ridge and Brooke back together. Despite Taylor's precarious condition, Eric Forrester teams up with Donna and Brooke to step up his interference in an attempt to split Ridge and Taylor. Ridge reaffirms his dedication to Taylor, but will Eric's deceit succeed? Eric's shocking betrayal, Patricia schemes to ruin the relationship between Ridge and Taylor. Everyone could suffer greatly as a result of the family patriarch declaring war on his own son's happiness. Even seasoned viewers did not anticipate Eric Forrester's official transgression. In addition to subtly disapproving of Ridge and Taylor's relationship, the Forrester patriarch is actively working with Donna and Brooke to undermine it. Even if it takes breaking Taylor's recently repaired heart, this three-person wrecking crew is committed to getting Ridge back together. Exposed, Eric's manipulative master plan. The deliberate nature of Eric's meddling is what makes this situation more unsettling. According to people familiar with the show, the patriarch has been deliberately reenacting fond memories of Ridge, playing Ridge tapes of previous romantic interactions with Brooke, and setting up opportunities for the ex-couple to reunite. Not to mention that Taylor's recent battle with broken heart syndrome is well known to Eric. You'd think Eric would be sympathetic after her medical crisis and incredible recovery, which was mostly due to her reunion with Ridge. Instead, he is prepared to jeopardize her happiness and health in order to do what he believes is best for his son. One insider claims that Eric is an expert in his field. He has supported Ridge from the beginning and views Taylor as a transient barrier rather than a woman who has endured a lot. What is the duration of Ridge's firm stance? To his credit, despite his father's tactics, Ridge has stayed faithful to Taylor thus far. Ridge adamantly declared that he has chosen Taylor and plans to keep that promise when asked directly about Eric's desires. However, no one is more aware of how quickly Ridge Forrester's heart may be won than soap opera fans. Will he finally give in to the pressure, with Brooke, Donna, and Eric all against him? History indicates that the creator will eventually become perplexed about his emotions once more. Thomas and Steffi will be furious. There will be hell to pay when Steffi and Thomas find out what their grandfather is up to. Not only does Eric betray Taylor, but it also slaps her kids in the face. Knowing that Eric is actively attempting to separate her parents will probably ruin Steffi's relationship with her grandfather, since she has always been quite protective of her mother. Although Thomas has only lately gained everyone's favor, he has a strong sense of familial devotion and will not tolerate anyone harming his mother. The balance of Taylor's health. The potential impact on Taylor's well-being is the most worrisome part of this entire plan. Her diagnosis of broken heart syndrome wasn't made for show. It's a real illness that can be fatal in situations of great stress. The emotional damage could cause Taylor to relapse dangerously if Ridge does ultimately give in to Eric's deception and go back to Brooke. To see his son with Brooke, is Eric truly prepared to risk the death of his ex-daughter-in-law? There is no doubt that the Forrester family is on the verge of a violent altercation that may irreparably sever ties for many generations to come. Everyone will be affected when the truth about Eric's interference is revealed. A love founded on shaky foundations collapses as Taylor's desperation may cost her Ridge. Now more than just rumors, Taylor Hayes' picture-perfect reunion with Ridge Forrester was rife with fissures that threatened to shatter her happiness. Taylor believed that she had finally regained her place in Ridge's heart after years of battling, making sacrifices, and waiting for her chance. However, even the purest love can be tainted by desperation, and Taylor's increasingly unpredictable actions were driving Ridge to a breaking point that neither of them anticipated. It began quietly, a protective hold on his arm whenever Brooke was close, a sarcastic tone when she inquired about his schedule, a desire for continual confirmation that their love was genuine and unwavering. Ridge initially wrote it off as residual insecurity, the inevitable result of their turbulent past. However, Ridge's patience grew dangerously thin when Taylor started interrupting his calls, showing up at his meetings without warning, and even doubting his allegiance in front of his kids. The last straw? The charge hovered between them like a guillotine, and Ridge's astonished silence said volumes. It was a hushed argument at Il Giardino, when Taylor, driven by paranoia and too many glasses of wine, accused him of falling back into old patterns, her coded way of saying "you still love Brooke." Taylor was unaware that her desperation was smothering their relationship rather than preserving it. The foundation they'd fought so hard to construct was being eroded with every cries of desperation, passive-aggressive jab, and "I just need to know you're mine." Even her fiercest defender, Steffi, became apprehensive and cautioned her mother that love shouldn't feel like a hostage situation. However, Taylor was too scared and haunted by Brooke's ghost to realize the harm she was doing until it was too late. The pivotal moment occurred during what ought to have been their most joyous evening, a romantic supper to commemorate their new beginning. Instead, it turned into a catastrophe when Taylor, desperate to find out, insisted that Ridge acknowledge his feelings for Brooke. Her world fell apart at his tired, resigned "I can't do this anymore" reaction. Taylor became aware of the harsh irony at that very moment. She was losing him because she was afraid of losing him. Now that Ridge is retreating and Brooke is observing from the sidelines, maybe with pity or satisfaction, no one can be certain, Taylor must confront her harshest reality to date: love formed out of desperation is doomed from the beginning. And she might have ruined her last shot with the man she has loved her entire life if she can't figure out how to trust, really trust. Is Brooke waiting in the wings based on her response to Ridge's retreat? The furious altercation between Steffi and Ridge on his treatment of Taylor. A flashback to the initial onset of Taylor's insecurity. Does Thomas support Ridge or Taylor after his startling betrayal? Ridge never saw the impending ultimatum coming. As models got ready backstage, designers made last-minute adjustments, and photographers fought for the finest spots to capture the enchantment of the highly anticipated couture fashion show. The atmosphere inside Forrester Creations was nearly vibrating with excitement. With the exception of Brooke Logan and Taylor Hayes, who were physically stranded in one of the rear dressing rooms while the show they had worked so hard to create continued without them, everyone was completely focused. After weeks of conflict, scathing comments, and passive-aggressive cooperation, fate, or maybe karma, had stepped in and locked them together in a closet-sized room as the music grew louder and the models took to the catwalk. The incident was almost too hilarious to believe. Brooke was in a panic almost instantly, beating on the door and screaming for help, while Taylor, who was always the more composed of the two, at least on the outside, leaned against the wall with her arms crossed and tried to calm herself. The enormity of the circumstance quickly enveloped them like a smothering blanket. They were missing the season's most important event, which was intended to highlight Forrester's unity and genius, and it was taking place only a few feet away. Even worse, no one had yet detected their absence. For Brooke, who took great satisfaction in constantly being the focus of attention, that was a bitter pill, and for Taylor, who had sincere aspirations to establish herself as a reliable and constructive member of the team, it was an even more terrible pill. The tension between them deepened as the minutes passed into what seemed like hours, weighed down by years of unresolved strife and brewing bitterness. With each anxious step, Brooke's high heels clicked hard on the floor as she paced the small room. She yelled, "This is ridiculous," and raised her hands in confusion. When she said Ridge's name, her voice cracked slightly, and Taylor heard it, raising an eyebrow but initially remaining silent. "How could this happen? Doesn't anybody notice we're gone?" "Doesn't Ridge notice?" she asked. Brooke's mouth dropped open in indignation, but the retort died on her lips when she finally spoke after a lengthy pause, her voice calm but piercing. "Maybe they're too busy enjoying a drama-free show for once." She secretly worried Taylor was correct. Perhaps everyone had had enough of the never-ending conflicts. Perhaps her absence wasn't as disastrous as she had anticipated. The performance carried on without incident outside the barred door. Hope wowed the crowd with her latest creations. Ridge and Steffi led the models down the runway with big smiles, and the media ignored the fact that two of Forrester's most recognizable women were nowhere to be seen. Even Eric, who was sitting in the front row with pride, was happy to enjoy his family's accomplishment without realizing the mayhem that was developing a few rooms away. Both Brooke and Taylor learned a hard lesson from it: whether you're in the spotlight or confined to a forgotten room, life goes on. The tone inside their makeshift prison changed from one of rage to one of reluctant honesty as the moments passed. Without an audience and nothing to divert them, the women started talking about their loneliness, regrets, and anxieties rather than Ridge or their rivalry. Brooke acknowledged that she frequently questioned whether she was doomed to constantly be the second option and battle for love. Despite her calm, collected demeanor, Taylor acknowledged that she still battled thoughts of inadequacy, particularly in relation to Ridge. They were both surprised by the vulnerability. For the first time in a long time, they recognized each other as women who had somehow managed to survive a lifetime of emotional conflict rather than as adversaries. It was not an easy chat. Old wounds came to the surface, and old charges were made. Taylor still loathed Brooke for severing her family, and Brooke continued to accuse Taylor of controlling Ridge during times of vulnerability. However, the barbs didn't have the same impact as they formerly had because there was no one to perform for or side with. Rather, they exposed a common suffering and fatigue. Exhausted from the day's emotional roller coaster, both women collapsed onto a small bench as the distant sound of clapping reverberated through the walls, signifying the end of the act. Brooke laughed bitterly and shook her head. Taylor smiled wryly and said, "Can you believe it? We missed the whole thing. Again. Maybe it was supposed to happen this way. Maybe we needed to stop fighting for once." The after-party outside came alive. The press demanded interviews, glasses clinked, and laughter rang out. When Ridge finally realized they were gone, he dispatched a desperate search party, but by the time Carter jimmied the latch and flung the door wide, he was stopped in his tracks by what he saw: Taylor and Brooke seated next to one another, not yelling or fighting, but simply conversing. Silently. Calmly. The scene was so startling that Carter just gaped for a second before gathering himself. He continued, Ladies? We've been looking everywhere for you," still half expecting them to suddenly jump up and start fighting again. However, they didn't. First to stand, Brooke smoothed down her dress and extended an olive branch, although a small one, to Taylor. Taylor accepted it, giving it a light squeeze before releasing it. Blinking against the dazzling cameras and applauding crew, they emerged into the tumultuous celebration, feeling oddly cut off from it all. Behind that sealed door, they had witnessed, in a sense, a more significant performance, a performance of humility, honesty, and surprising comprehension. They might have been a bit less dedicated to being worst enemies, but they were still no closer to being best friends. Later, when the party was coming to an end and the staff was packing up, Ridge discovered Brooke and Taylor standing together by a window, taking in the nighttime sparkle of the Los Angeles cityscape. He stepped forward warily, uncertain whether to congratulate or brace for contact. But with a rare, unspoken ceasefire beaming in their weary eyes, they just turned to face him. "We missed the show," replied Brooke in a casual tone. Taylor gave a nod. "But maybe we didn't miss the point." Although it might not continue, it was a moment of tenuous serenity that was significant. Taylor and Brooke would always have a complex past. They would always be connected by the web of fate and family, and they would always love Ridge in their own unique ways. But tonight, confined to a small space together as the outside world continued on without them, they found something more precious than praise or recognition, a glimmer of compassion, a sense of humanity. And perhaps, just possibly, that was the true showstopper.